I don't know if you've been following what's been going on with the immigrant crisis in the Mediterranean. Literally tens of thousands of people have been crossing the ocean, going across the Mediterranean to get into Europe. And part of it is that they're trying to escape the brutal conditions in their home countries, like Syria, Iraq, Iran, a number of places in Africa. I mean, there's a lot of war going on around the world, and everyday people are just saying, look, I can't live like this. This is not safe for my family. I got to get out of here. Well, where do you go? I've heard people say over and over again here in the United States, well, if you don't like it, get out. Love it or leave it. And that's a very popular sentiment, as if somehow people had a choice as to where they could go. Do you realize that if you left the United States and just went somewhere, if you didn't have permission to come into that country, and normally, and I've traveled quite a bit. I've gone to India, I've gone to Morocco, I've gone to several places in Eastern Europe. If you don't have the right paperwork to get across the border, you're not getting in. People talk about all these illegal immigrants. What makes them illegal? It's the fact that people on this side of this imaginary line have said, you need to have your paperwork and before you can cross. Now, put it flip it. Instead of it being people trying to come into your country, trying to come into your backyard, trying to take your job, trying to take your free government benefits, flip it around. What if you felt like the only thing you could do to save your family was to flee your home, to flee the city that you grew up in, to flee the country that you loved so much? Where would you go? How far would you go to try to save your family? Would you get into a boat and attempt a dangerous crossing of an ocean that, I mean, there have been, hundreds of people killed this year so far, maybe thousands. I know that there have been 85,000 people that have crossed into Europe across the Mediterranean Sea, and of them, about 1 in 39 dies. So I guess you can do the math if you'd like to find out what that percentage is of how many people actually die trying to get to a better life. And it's not necessarily freedom. I don't know if you've been watching what's going on in Europe right now. There are a number of groups, in fact, this one here, Defend Europe, that is in the news today, that are going out there to try to defend the purity of the European blood by interfering with these migrants coming in to Europe. Now, you can, again, take it as far as you want to about the idea of private property versus making a border. I think there's a difference. You see, because borders are arbitrarily drawn lines that cross people's private property. In fact, there are a couple of cities in Europe where the border between the countries goes right down the middle of the city. That's great. It's kind of like Minneapolis, St. Paul in the United States. You've got these two cities on either side of the river that are, well, it's a similar kind of thing, except that you see a river is a natural boundary. It's a natural frontier, and most borders that we have are arbitrarily drawn. Some of them make absolutely no sense at all. They're not geographic in nature. They're not natural boundaries. These are things that are it's like corrals being put around cattle. And when a cow gets out of the corral, instead of cheering the cow on, hey, go for it, Bessie, go grab some freedom, the rest of the cows in the corral are saying, hey, Farmer Smith, we got a cow out. Go capture that escaped cow. Anyway, number of different things packed into today's podcast, but let me just make this one point. Put it on yourself. Instead of putting it on them as if somehow they are lawbreakers and they are somehow trying to destroy your way of life by coming into your country, ask yourself, what would you do to save your family? And then tell me. Send me an email. I'd love to have a conversation with you about it. Steve@radiofreespeech.com.